Uh-huh. Hey guys, here we are back again to the
Oh, okay.
right angle cross of consciousness.
Goodbye then.
Goodbye then. Let me just finish this off.
Okay.
The 4-6 symbolized by the phase of the moon that's assured of transition, convinced by its very process that it will triumph. The assuredness that confusion is a process that results in realization, or where confusion is so energized, assuredness never brings real belief. Conviction. It doesn't matter to the 4-6 that there is confusion. It doesn't matter to them that they don't really see the consciousness that's there for them because they realize out of conviction that there's a 4-6 voyeur, and it's great to be a voyeur on the cross of consciousness because your purpose is fulfilled through being a witness of the consciousness field. The 4-6 on the cross do a great job of sussing out the consciousness level and everything that they meet. Now, again, we know underneath what that's all about in this quarter. That is, they're looking for that soulmate that's going to show up, that's going to have the consciousness that they can deeply relate to. By the way, the cross of consciousness ultimately do find those kinds of people in their life in which they can feel intellectually comfortable. It's like this. It's a direction that's not fulfilled at some concretized level. But in terms of it being idolized thing, no, it never gets there. What you get through with the 4-6 is the 4-6 says, "I wait." They go through the 4-3. They go through the phase in which they don't really get to the opportunities that they need. They don't really have access to that kind of consciousness field that is for them. And remember, we can never forget beings on crosses are beings are not self, that have open centers that are being conditioned, that they have a mind that's running their life. Please understand that in any descriptions that we do have here, I'm talking about archetypes disconnected from the actual body, from their graph, from their characteristics, from their type, how different the cross of consciousness is in a projector or in a generator or in a reflector or whatever. The fact is that we have to see that we're simply talking about archetypes here. Most of my work in doing this is that you will be enriched in your understanding of the genetic continuity of lines, that you have a deep and rich understanding of profile. That's the real goal. Be really careful about taking what I'm saying about the cross of consciousness and immediately assuming that that's the way the whole package is going to work. It's where the purpose is. And ultimately, if the characteristics are operating correctly, that purpose is attainable. And it's attainable in a way in which their relationship with the other can be correct relative to their limitation. If you're going to have a cross of consciousness low in your life, you're going to have expect a certain amount of disengagement, a certain amount of they don't seem to be present right now, a certain amount of confusion in which way they both express their relationship with you and the way in which they expire their concepts about the world around them. But if you're correct, you have somebody who will resonate to whatever that mental dysfunction is. They'll be able to live with it, to accept it. It's there. So 4-6 have certain advantages. However, the not self 4-6 on this cross with its assuredness that sooner or later it's going to happen can end up being very, very depressed. When they go up on the roof, they can get very cold and very distant. They look out and they say, well, it doesn't look like there's really anybody out there. I've been watching, I've been looking. If they have any strong individuality in them, they will have already created some kind of unregretted love, virtual ideal, a novelist that they read whose mind they think is extraordinary, a teacher or whatever. All of these things are available in any kind of personality society in order to be able to see that there's a consciousness out there, that it's something that they can relate to. It's obviously interesting that whenever we're dealing with a 6, obviously we're dealing with the Chironian process and the understanding that this in and of itself is a mutative quantum where they have to make that leap, and making that leap, realizing something so beautiful that we do not have to make sense or understand everything. I thought that when I was giving the knowledge that because it's an absolute of the Maya, that finally people would be satisfied. Here it is, an absolute of the Maya. Shut up now, sit up. But it's not enough because the Maya is so deep and so dense. And there's so many places you can go and so many questions that you can ask. It goes on and on and on and on and on. As a matter of fact, you can even make up Maya, attach it to Maya, and then do that. We humans do that all the time. The Maya expands moment by moment, breath by breath. But for the 4-6, it's the recognition that our lives are not determined by having an answer. Human life is not the point of human life. Human life is, ironically enough, just living. And after that, it doesn't matter. It's not like you have to know. I thought when I was first introduced to spiritual mysticism that the responsibility was you wake up the planet. You wake up the whole planet. And only if you can wake up the whole planet are you success. The Messiah mythology. Wake up the world. Not that anyone has ever done that, but nonetheless, this concept of wake them all up. All of the mystical literature, spiritual literature, and religious literature is rooted in the concept that there are this glorious final day where everybody wakes up and everybody gets in just before the door slams. What the cross of consciousness recognizes that because human beings are stupid, and they figure that out because human beings have varying levels of consciousness, and most of the consciousness field is deeply dense. It's obviously that the solution, the answer, isn't a universal requirement. It isn't. It's such a shock when they find that out. It's the most liberating thing that can happen to them. And it's for the four sixes to get to that experience in their Charonian state, when they can suddenly realize consciousness isn't the point, it's a preference, but it's not the point. It cannot stand alone and the reason. Otherwise, humanity, the vast majority of the life force of the planet, would not be denied it. It sets them free. Ah, it sets them free. Okay, let's go to the juxtaposition cross of confusion. A lot of confusion here. The 4 1. When we're dealing with the 4 1, we're finally beginning to move weight here. We're getting to the end of our juicy red field that the 5 moves into the 26. And of course, we get to the 45 on the other side. So when you get into the juxtaposition cross of confusion, you trade the 5 and the 35, and instead you get the pure, unaltered tribal business by the 26. The 26 is an incredible, powerful gate. And of course, the 45 is literally the only voice of the tribe. It's the only express of the tribe and the great gate of entitlement. One of the things to see about this entitlement, this gate of gathering together, the pasha, the ruler, all those terms we know that go with it, is that the deepest responsibility of the 45 gates is that the only way in which they can enrich themselves is through the education of those that they can control. It used to be the tribes had to compete with brute strength. We know that those tribes compete in terms of education. The better you educate the tribe, the more successful it's going to be. That in the end, education is the only in which the tribe can be enriched. And if you have a well educated tribe, as the ruler of the tribe, you're going to get a lot of more taxes. You're going to be able to get in a lot more income. And this is the reward for educating. Now, the 26 enforces the rule of the tribe. It's a tribal warrior, it's a tribal soldier, it's the tribal propagandist, it's the tribal sales representative. It is the tribal representative into the outside world. So, looking to this juxtaposition cross of confusion, you have to see that this is the consciousness anymore. We still have the 64, 63, but this is not the cross of consciousness. So, do not confuse them. And this is why the most confusing of all harmonic profiles. The 4-1 here is so confusing. It all puts it out. And what it puts out is a dumbed down tribal educational program that tries to make sense out of very complex and confusing things and feed them back to the tribe. And all that breeds is more confusion. Oh, it really does. And confusion in the sense of what it means to, let's say, introduce Western democratic thought into the textbook of a historically totalitarian environment. It can be very confusing what that brings. The results can lead to turmoil. Be very clear that this cross brings turmoil, brings problems. Remember this assuredness attached to it. This is the only way. We're going to take this little village in the middle of Africa and we're going to create Silicon Valley here. We're going to change it all. We're going to end all these local practices. We're going to change the architecture. We're going to put them into schools. We're going to educate them and on and on and on. And you end up with an enormous confusion field. It isn't in your heart and it isn't in the right place. It is just that you don't have a heart. There's no 21 in this. There is no cabal between the 45 and the 26. One should always be careful about any combination of this arm because you know what's missing is not the heart. When the 45 and the 21 discuss what it needs to be done in order to beneficial for the tribe, even though the 21 is the control mechanism, it brings heart. It says, yes, I know we have to take more taxes from them, but let's not take too much. Otherwise, it's going to be problems for them and they're going to suffer and they begin to resist us. There always is. There's always ways to controlling where they have to have the heart. It's a 21 gate after all. It's the heart muscle. I got it. But the 26 gate is just the thymus gland. It's the T cells. It's the killing machine. When it sits with the 45, it sits with the CEO and says to the president, it's really wishy-washy. What's the matter with them? Why don't you just let me go out there and collect the taxes? And anybody who doesn't pay, I kill them. Then everybody else will pay the taxes on time. There won't be any rebellion. They'll kill the bastards. And all the ones that pay their taxes, we'll put them on a stage. We'll have an event. We'll bring off the villagers. And we will show them wonderful how they are. We give them medals. So the 26 and the 45 is a risky combination. There's no 21 there. And you can also see that if there's a 21 between the 45 and the 26, you're between a rock and a hard place. The squeeze is on. All 26s want to be 21s. All 45s want to be 21s. 21s can stand 45s or 26s. Whoa. Okay, I didn't know that. I'm a 21. I like my 45. I'm a